Scarlet, Elva, and Dimian had been engaged to Prince Kyle since before their birth due to a pact made between their families, yet that promise crumbled during a grand ball when Kyle suddenly announced the annulment of their engagement. He declared he was done with Scarlet and intended to be with his lover, Terraneza, leaving Scarlet stunned by his betrayal. The guests applauded the new couple as Kyle announced his plan to marry Terraneza soon, and Scarlet couldn't comprehend how everyone could cheer for a man who had just humiliated his fiancée. The answer came swiftly when Kyle began praising Terraneza as a kind and intelligent woman while mocking Scarlet as emotionless. He declared that pretending to love her for the past 17 years had been the greatest shame of his life and that he was finally free. Refusing to yield, Scarlet reminded him that their engagement had been arranged by their parents, meaning he had no right to cancel it alone. Kyle, however, arrogantly claimed he could because Scarlet was allegedly a petty criminal who had tormented Terraneza out of jealousy. Terraneza then pretended to be a victim as Kyle accused Scarlet of bullying her at the academy. Scarlet dismissed the accusation, pointing out that this was the first time she had even met Terraneza since they were in different classes. Yet Kyle, never known for his intellect, failed to grasp her point and instead accused Scarlet of insulting Terraneza by emphasizing the class difference between the elite and the common students. Kyle accuses Scarlet, claiming that Terraneza told him how Scarlet bullied her, locking her in the toilet, pushing her down the stairs, and tormenting her in countless ways. Calling Scarlet a cruel villain, he continues his insults until she finally loses patience. Deciding she has had enough of his childish behavior, Scarlet tells Kyle that she no longer cares about the accusations and will accept the nullification of their engagement. Yet before ending things completely, she asks for one last favor. Kyle refuses, but Terraneza, confident in her triumph, urges him to listen so Scarlet won't have any regrets. Moved by her supposed kindness, Kyle praises Terraneza and asks Scarlet what her final request is. Scarlet slowly approaches, clenching her fist, and calmly declares that her last wish is to punch them in the face. Shocked, Kyle demands to know if she's lost her mind, but Scarlet doesn't answer. Instead, she delivers a flawless punch straight to Terraneza's face, one so perfect that even Muhammad Ali would have admired it. Behind that single punch, however, lies a long backstory. From childhood, Scarlet had a habit of hitting people. Every other week, someone would end up bruised by her fists. Her brother Leonardo constantly scolded her for her violent ways, but Scarlet insisted she fought for justice. Though Leonardo knew she'd have protected a commoner from a noble bully, he couldn't ignore the sight of her covered in blood. He reminded her that she would soon be introduced into noble society and needed to stop fighting and start behaving like a proper lady. Scarlet's greatest challenge began when she first met the insufferable Kyle during the ceremony, where he arrogantly declared that she would be his servant from that day onward. Knowing he was not only the second prince but also her fiancé, she forced herself to hold back the urge to punch him. That moment marked the start of her misery as Kyle continued to torment her with pranks and insults while she was powerless to fight back due to their family's ties. Even her father couldn't intervene against the royal family's influence, leaving Scarlet to silently endure years of humiliation. When she turned 15, she entered the National Academy with outstanding grades and quickly gained admiration from her peers. But her brief peace ended when Kyle, who attended the same academy, publicly announced that she would still serve him there as his slave. By then, Scarlet had grown used to his cruelty and faced his tantrums with a calm, unreadable expression. A few days later, Kyle barged into her classroom in a foul mood, berating her and demanding she buy him lunch. She apologized and agreed, but he wasn't satisfied. Instead, he dragged her away to punish her while his lackeys made sure no one told the teachers. Scarlet soon discovered that his rage came from being demoted to a regular class because of his poor grades, and he wanted to take it out on her. When he decided to cut her hair and show it off as a trophy, Scarlet's patience finally reached its limit, and she warned him to stop or she would report him to her family. Kyle insulted Scarlet's father, calling him nothing more than a lapdog for the royal family, which infuriated her to the point where she nearly sent him into the Shadow Realm. Before things escalated, the first prince, Julius, appeared and intervened, stopping the fight before it got out of hand. Unable to argue against his brother, Kyle left after being scolded, though Scarlet knew he would eventually return to trouble her again. She expressed her gratitude to Julius, who calmly replied that he was merely protecting his younger brother, then continued with light conversation that made Scarlet begin to admire his character. Aware that Julius was the strongest candidate for the next king, she understood why the corrupt nobles supported Kyle out of fear. However, admiration soon turned into envy when Julius achieved perfect scores in every subject, breaking her streak as the top student. Convinced of his talent and dedication, Scarlet's feelings soured when Julius casually admitted that earning full marks had been easy for him, making her furious and determined to surpass him. Yet when rumors spread that Julius had intentionally lost the next exam to make her happy, she became even more irritated and chose to ignore him completely. Despite this, Julius persisted, often following her after school and asking about her situation with Kyle. It was then that Scarlet noticed Kyle hadn't bothered her since the confrontation, and she realized that Julius had been keeping an eye on her to ensure Kyle stayed away, which made her begin to see him in a different, more favorable light. Julius suddenly began flirting with her, and Scarlet might have fallen for it if he hadn't called her an interesting creature. Stunned by the remark, she soon learned he truly meant it. He kept notes on her like a specimen, which is when her hatred for him began and she vowed to punch him and Kyle someday. Back in the present, that promise finds an outlet in Terranez's face. With one punch, Scarlet sends her flying and flattens two others, prompting Kyle to freak out and demand what she's doing, to which Scarlet coldly answers that she was provoked by his cruel words and Terraneza had to pay. She then strides into the shocked crowd of nobles, each one corrupt in her eyes for celebrating the cancelled engagement, slips on the punching gloves she always carries, watches the nobles call guards, and immediately puts those guards to sleep with magic before beating the nobles one by one. They beg for protection and even offer slaves, though trade is illegal, but Scarlet judges them irredeemable, and activating her time magic to speed herself up, begins a furious blitz with fists rated E for everyone until all the nobles lie stunned on the floor. Only Kyle remains, already terror-stricken and wet himself, and as Scarlet prepares to strike him, Leonardo arrives too late. Scarlet's punch sends Kyle crashing into a wall. Leonardo was horrified by the sight of nobles lying scattered on the ground, while Julius found the scene amusing. Scarlet almost wanted to smack him but decided to hold back. She approached the two to greet them, and they immediately asked what caused her violent outburst. At first, Scarlet spoke like a machine, explaining that the nobles had committed unspeakable crimes and then tried to justify themselves, so she punished them. But when Julius asked for the real reason, she bluntly said they made her angry, so she knocked them out. Leonardo nearly had a heart attack, while Julius burst into laughter, saying he wished cameras existed so he could have seen how she beat them all. He joked that she should have waited for him before starting the fight, but Scarlet dismissed it as unreasonable. Leonardo began panicking about the aftermath, yet Julius reassured him he would handle everything. Suddenly, Scarlet felt dizzy and collapsed, with Julius catching her head before it hit the ground. 3 days later, she woke up to the sound of bells ringing in her head, realizing she had overused the power granted by Krenol, the god of time. As soon as she opened her eyes, a maid was on top of her with a knife. Scarlet calmly asked who she was, but the maid screamed for her to die and lunge at her, only for Scarlet to react instantly and punch her into a wall. Hearing a loud crash from his sister's room, Leonardo rushed in and was shocked to find that the first thing Scarlet did after regaining consciousness was punch someone. Relieved yet exasperated, he told her how worried he had been. After Scarlet freshened up, Julius entered and informed her that her engagement to Kyle had been officially annulled with both families' consent. Kyle had been stripped of his inheritance for protecting nobles involved in slave trading, and all nobles at the party had been arrested. Pleased, Scarlet asked if she too would be punished, but Julius assured her that she was too valuable to the royal family for that, though finding a suitor soon would be difficult. Then he shared unexpected news. Scarlet's bold actions had spread across the kingdom, and people now called her the Bloodstained Lady, a heroic figure who took down corrupt nobles with her own fists. Leonardo groaned at yet another terrifying nickname for his sister, but Julius reminded him there were more pressing matters. Many arrested nobles held key government posts, and the most troublesome of them all was the Prime Minister, Kyle's strongest ally. The king, already suspicious of Kyle's corruption, had formed a secret organization called CIO2 to expose it, an organization now led by Leonardo himself. Julius then summoned one of their agents, the first to infiltrate Kyle's faction and uncover critical evidence. The agent is revealed to be Sigurd, Kyle's subordinate, who immediately apologizes to Scarlet for his rude behavior. Scarlet sarcastically praises his convincing act, saying he deserves an Oscar, which makes Sigurd visibly anxious. Julius then gives her permission to punch Sigurd if it helps her move on, and Scarlet accepts but only gives him a light tap on the cheek, remembering how he had saved her multiple times while working for Kyle. Afterwards, she leaves, feeling liberated now that her ties with Kyle are severed. Her next goal is to confront the maid who once tried to assassinate her. The following morning, she visits the warehouse where the maid, Anaka, is held, only to find the maid's clothes abandoned. Suddenly, a wild cat attacks, but Scarlet quickly knocks it aside and realizes the maid is a shape-shifting beastfolk. She orders Nanaka to return to human form, and to her surprise, the maid turns out to be a boy determined to kill her. Scarlet notices a slave crest on his chest, forcing him to obey his master's will. She offers to free him in exchange for information about his master, and when he dares her to try, she takes it as consent. Pinning him down, Scarlet uses her powers to reverse the time on his slave crest. In this world, every human is born favored by a god, though only a few ever discover which deity blessed them and how to wield their divine gift. Scarlet, blessed by Krenol, the god of time, is highly valued by the royal family. Using Krenol's power, she restores Nanaka's body to its original state before his enslavement, though the effort leaves her exhausted. Keeping his promise, Nanaka reveals that Prime Minister Godwin sent him. Godwin's son was one of Scarlet's victims at the party, and in revenge, Godwin ordered Nanaka to kill her. However, Nanaka had already been sent long before to spy on her family. He warns Scarlet that Godwin cunningly places spies in noble households, learns their secrets, and blackmails them into joining his slave trade, trapping them further in corruption. Enraged, Scarlet decides to confront Godwin directly, but Nanaka urges caution, explaining that the man is always heavily guarded. The crossbreed servant then advises her to wait for the upcoming slave auction in a week, where Godwin will appear. Though he doesn't yet know the auction's location, he promises to find out and connect Scarlet with the slave trader, eager for revenge against the man who enslaved his kind. Scarlet agrees to his help, unaware that Julius overhears everything. Days later, she and Nanaka visit the slums to locate the trader, where she mentions buying a chunk of mithril from a child for a gold coin. Nanaka tells her she was scammed, but Scarlet insists otherwise. Julius, who invited himself along, claims he only came to learn more about Nanaka's people, believing that understanding them will make him a better king. When Scarlet presses Julius, he admits that he overheard her conversation and didn't want to miss the chance to watch some thugs get beaten senseless. A group of them soon shows up, and Scarlet eagerly prepares to fight, but Nanaka stops her, insisting he can handle it with words. He offers to pay the thugs to take them to the trader named Junk, but they refuse, mocking them for looking weak. They brag about robbing a kid who sold a rock to a foolish rich woman for a gold coin, claiming that the strong always prey on the weak. Enraged, Scarlet enhances her strength and speed, swiftly knocking out 3 thugs before taking down the rest, who recognize her as the infamous violent noblewoman. She defeats the one with an eye patch and faces the last thug, the one who boasted about the strong preying on the weak. Mocking his words, she says that by his logic, she can do whatever she wants to him. He begs for mercy, promising to return the boy's money, but she says he can do that after the beating. In desperation, he blurts out the slave trader's location, and Scarlet thanks him before knocking him unconscious. Julius claps, and she demands to know what he was doing during the fight. He asks if she would have preferred his help, which she instantly rejects. Fearing Scarlet might ruin things or that Junk could recognize Nanaka, Julius goes to question the trader himself. With quick bluffing and threats, he learns the location of the next slave auction. On the way back, Scarlet calls him a potential common, and he retorts that it's better than being a violent maniac. Nanaka, watching them bicker, wonders if this is how the enemies to lovers story begins, just before Scarlet and Julius simultaneously turn to him for ideas on infiltrating the auction. Scarlet visits Zatharan and nobleman and the slave trader Junk had mentioned. Delighted to see a new customer, Zatharan still criticizes her for lowering herself to speak with a commoner like Junk when she could have asked another noble for his address. Ignoring the remark, Scarlet questions his connection with Junk. Zatharan explains that they had no real partnership. He only paid Junk to bring him any valuable slaves found in the slums. When Scarlet asks what he means, he lists dwarves, elves, and beastmen, then gestures toward Nanaka, calling her a valuable specimen. Nanaka stiffens at the comment, and Scarlet, furious, nearly lashes out, but Nanaka urges her to stay calm and follow the plan. When Zatharan stops laughing, he asks what kind of slave Scarlet seeks. She replies that she wants to attend the upcoming slave auction in the capital. His expression turns serious as he explains she must first be verified by revealing her status and trading at least 6 slaves. Scarlet offers him any amount of money, but Zatharan says it's not about payment. If she gives him the beastfolk servant, he'll take her to the auction as the daughter of a distant relative. Scarlet, furious but composed, forced a polite smile and agreed to give the slave just to enter the auction. Leaving the mansion with Nanaka, she was shocked by the open slave trade but relieved their plan had worked. Nanaka, surprised she hadn't used violence, teased her until she pinched him. On the way home, Scarlet asked if he was sure, warning she could remove his slave crest later but couldn't protect him while he was enslaved. Nanaka yawned, explaining the man seemed intent on auctioning him and would guard his merchandise, his way of attending for trying to kill her. As a nocturnal beastfolk, Nanaka transformed and fell asleep in her arms, and Scarlet carried him back to the inn where Prince Julius awaited. When she told him the negotiation succeeded, Julius was stunned she managed it without fighting, irritating Scarlet further when he joked about wanting to witness it. She ignored him, put Nanaka to bed, and stepped outside for air, only for Julius to follow, claiming coincidental business. At the market, an apple pie merchant offered Scarlet a free apple, and Julius joined, buying one too. A jewelry seller and a suspicious fortune teller followed, and Julius bought cheap items after haggling. When Scarlet asked his business, he admitted he had none and teased her for believing him, calling her cute. Scarlet, furious but unable to strike a prince, punched a wall instead. Julius laughed and offered an apple pie so heavenly she forgave him after he bought a second one. Noting his familiarity with the city, Julius explained he often skipped classes to explore. Scarlet remarked on the market's liveliness, recalling she had only ever bought bread before. Julius admitted he wanted her to see it, making Scarlet suspect he came just to show her around, though she wished he'd said so. Then he grew serious, confessing his hatred of boredom, that only twisted or ugly things had ever interested him, and that he was tired of pretending before foolish nobles who sought his favor. Julius noticed Scarlet, who ignored him, while his younger brother bullied her, so he approached her, offering to complain to his father if Kyle frightened her. Scarlet, however, responded with a creepy smile, calling it a joke, instantly capturing Julius's full attention, and he never stopped finding her intriguing. He confessed that most things bored him when he hated being bored, so he kept interesting things close, and none were more fascinating than Scarlet. Without warning, he leaned in and kissed her cheek, leaving her stunned, and explained it wasn't traditional romantic love, but he liked her and valued her deeply. That night, Scarlet sat alone, questioning if the kiss was another of the prince's tricks. The next day, she met Zatharan, agreeing to hand over Nanaka if he honored his promise. He accepted, but requested proof the slave was truly a beast folk. Scarlet, slightly annoyed, commanded Nanaka to transform, revealing a cat-like creature, which delighted Zatharan. Suddenly, a terrifying man with fang-like lower teeth entered. asking if Scarlet was the customer for the new slave. Zatharin confirmed, introducing Donovan as the beast folk slave she had brought. Nanaka glared at Donovan, who Scarlet realized was a half-human, half-magic beast, a lycanthrope. Donovan apologized for his slave's rudeness and ordered him taken away. Excited, he noted the beastman's rapid regeneration and snapped a metal collar around Nanaka's neck. Nanaka resisted, angering Donovan, who swung his barbed whip, only for Scarlet to catch it barehanded. She taunted Zatharin, offering to punish the slave herself, but he dismissed her, warning that defeating a former A-rank adventurer required knight captain-level strength. Confused, Scarlet asked why it mattered. Zatharin said he only worried for her. Donovan, however, declared it too late to curb his pride and tried to yank the whip, failing against Scarlet's grip. Zatharin insisted no girl could overpower a heavier man, but Donovan claimed he was serious. Scarlet then asked if Donovan would be auctioned. Zatharin said he'd be kept as a personal bodyguard and trainer, reassuring her he wouldn't lose value. Without warning, Scarlet flung Donovan into the air and punched him into the stratosphere, leaving Zatharin stunned while she ignored him entirely. Scarlet removes Nanaka's collar, noticing his bleeding, and heals him with magic, hugging him while urging patience before addressing the noble about the broken window. The noble insists she needn't pay and thanks her for disciplining Donovan, admitting he cannot manage it himself. At her inn, Scarlet finds a familiar carriage and her furious brother demanding explanations on the way to the capital. Seeing Julius inside, she curses him for failing to stop her brother from discovering them. At the capital, Leonardo drinks hard liquor while scolding Scarlet and Julius for risking their lives, but Julius explains they located the slave auction, easing Leonardo temporarily. He then reveals Prime Minister Godwin is organizing it, and panic spreads as Scarlet reports it's in 2 days, prompting urgent planning. Scarlet glares at Julius, who teasingly offers apple pie, enraging her for no reason. Leonardo presents his plan and orders her home, but she refuses, explaining her motives run deeper than revenge. She has long seen good people suffer while evil nobles thrive. Believing ordinary means can't punish greedy nobles, she declares she will handle them herself, standing to call selfish nobles the most satisfying targets to punch, which shocks Leonardo and amuses Julius. She insists, as a duke's daughter, she can manage, frustrating Leonardo, who fears their family's reputation. The looming threat of Empire officials at the auction makes Scarlet and Julius tense, as the Empire, ruled by ruthless dragon riders, has long opposed their kingdom. Leonardo notes the Air Force has contacted Godwin, who meets aerial army officials. Angered by Scarlet crashing Kyle's party, Godwin orders her elimination. A red-headed soldier flies off on his dragon, earning Godwin's rebuke for arrogance, when a girl suddenly points a strange gun at him, claiming it's a gift from goddess Palmia. Unfamiliar with firearms, Godwin is stunned when she shoots a vase. The girl, Taryn, Kyle's side companion, warns the weapon can kill even the deadliest foes and urges Godwin to use it in battle. The auction day finally arrives, and Zatharin greets Scarlet with visible nerves. He hands her a mask that can barely hide her face, and she thanks him with a smirk, knowing this will be the noble's final auction. As he leads her into the hall, Scarlet quietly reviews her plan. After discovering the location, Julius had dispatched his agents disguised as servants to infiltrate the place, though unarmed and restricted from using magic. Knowing they couldn't arrest Godwin themselves, he relied on Scarlet as their main fighter, confident that her fists alone were enough. Inside, Scarlet strides in calmly while Leonardo and his knights wait outside, prepared to strike when Julius gives the signal. Though Leonardo trusts their setup, he silently prays. Scarlet restrains herself, fearing her temper might ruin everything. Meanwhile, Scarlet listens to the nobles' disgusting chatter about the slaves they desire, all eager for the night's main attraction, the shape-shifting beast folk. Suddenly, the lights go out, and she collides with a man who quickly apologizes before leaving. The moment his voice reaches her ears, she realizes she's heard it somewhere before. The auction begins before Scarlet can think further, as the announcer steps on stage, presenting a one-winged bird woman that sends the nobles into a frenzy of bidding. Watching from the balcony, Scarlet struggles to contain her anger when Julius suddenly appears. She questions why he's there instead of leading the mission, and he explains he came to check on her. As she tries to leave, Julius follows, asking if she's found Godwin. She admits she hasn't, but has an idea where he might be. Julius urges her to hurry, since the royal knights outside could seize her target first. Scarlet offers him a deal: delay their move, and she'll give him the spectacle of Godwin's defeat. Intrigued, Julius agrees but wants more. When she vows lifelong loyalty to the crown, he refuses, saying he doesn't want it for the kingdom. Gently holding her face, he tells her to swear loyalty to him instead. Scarlet smirks, saying it's the same since he'll be emperor soon, but Julius replies he's too impatient to wait. Scarlet hesitates, but the prince warns she won't get what she wants without swearing loyalty. Reluctantly, she pledges allegiance, pleasing Julius. Afterward, he asks about Godwin's whereabouts, and Scarlet says he's likely watching from the highest balcony. Julius suggests they hurry, but Scarlet insists she's even more eager to crush the corrupt minister. Meanwhile, in the prison, guards drag an elf woman away, leaving her daughter behind. The girl tries to follow, but Nanaka stops her, promising everyone will be safe as the slaves pray for deliverance. Back with Scarlet, she silently puts the guards to sleep, earning Julius' praise for her precise magic. She sulks, reminding him he once beat her in the academy, which secretly amuses him. They soon face a group of thugs, and Scarlet recognizes them as Godwin's private guards. Smirking, she calls them appetizers, slips on her diamond-studded knuckles, and defeats them effortlessly without even using Kreno's blessing. She then smashes through the door to Godwin's chamber, where he and his allies watch in shock, and declares with a grin that her fists have been itching to meet his face. Godwin is stunned to see her, while his son bursts with rage, eager to settle his grudge against Scarlet. He fires a lightning spell, but Julius instantly cancels it using the royal ring. Panic spreads as Godwin recognizes the ring, a relic that only the Emperor and Julius should possess. The nobles freeze in fear, realizing their downfall, yet they try to convince themselves the blonde before them is an imposter. Godwin orders a special slave to be brought in, and Scarlet recognizes the Beastman as Donovan in his feral form. Commanding Donovan to kill both Scarlet and Julius, Godwin's plan collapses when a new figure appears, slicing through the chaos. Scarlet identifies him as Sigurd, the man she bumped into earlier, who had been posing as Kyle's loyal subordinate to infiltrate the auction. Enraged, Godwin orders everyone to attack. Sigurd steps forward to defend Scarlet and Julius, but Scarlet pulls him back, declaring that the nobles are her prey and he's to fight only Donovan. Amused and slightly thrilled, Sigurd agrees as Scarlet unleashes her fury, hurling nobles through the air, her grin terrifying everyone who dares approach. In her wild rampage, she sends several crashing over the balcony, leaving no doubt who owns the battlefield. Leonardo rushes inside after not receiving the prince's signal, only to be shocked by the bloody scene before him. Scarlet stands proudly among fallen nobles, making him think she's gone on a killing spree, but she calmly says no one's dead. She holds back. They then see Sigurd barely holding out against Donovan while guests flee in panic. Worried some might escape, Leonardo suggests mobilizing the knights, and Julius agrees, though Scarlet protests she hasn't beaten Godwin yet. Julius orders Leonardo to send knights after Godwin anyway, assuring Scarlet she alone gets to punish the Prime Minister. Leonardo, confused, demands an explanation, and Julius says he made a vow to Scarlet. Leonardo misinterprets it as wedding vows and gets emotional, thinking his sisters finally found love, leaving Scarlet puzzled. Julius sighs at their misunderstanding and signals the knights outside. Regaining composure, Leonardo activates his clairvoyance and locates Godwin and his son heading to the roof, right as a dragon appears above it. Julius confirms his suspicion that Godwin was working with the vanquished Empire's dragon riders and urges the group to move before he escapes, but they're still stuck in the basement. Scarlet kicks off her shoes, orders Leonardo to free Nanaka and the others, then activates her acceleration ability, sprinting up the stairs, rebounding off walls, and crashing through a window to reach the rooftop in seconds. Despite the strain, she refuses to stop when she spots Godwin and the dragon. On the roof, Godwin and his son arrogantly demand the dragon rider dismount and fight them as equals. Enraged, the rider insults them as worthless humans and commands his dragon to attack, but Scarlet drops from above, blocks the massive tail, and warns him not to touch her punching bags. She crushes Godwin's son underfoot and tells Godwin he's next, but before she can move, the stunned dragon rider jumps down, amazed she blocked the attack barehanded. Pulling back his hood, he kneels, confesses his love, and proposes, only for Scarlet to reject him coldly and send him flying with a single blow. Scarlet slams Alflame's head down and hits him with all her strength, enduring his knee blows to her face. Alflame pretends to be fine but soon feels dizzy from her kicks, realizing he's concussed. Stumbling but still determined, he begs her once more to leave with him, claiming the kingdom of weaklings isn't worthy of her. Tired of his nonsense, Scarlet grabs his collar and uses her power to fling him back to his kingdom. Turning to Godwin, who's trembling in fear, she listens as he apologizes for trying to kill her and for helping Taran ruin her engagement with Kyle. Shocked by the revelation, Scarlet demands to know if he aided Taran in humiliating Kyle. Godwin nervously admits he only followed Taran's plan. Seeing her interest, he tries to bargain for freedom, revealing that Taran was summoned from another world by the goddess herself. Unsure whether to believe him, Scarlet pauses, unsettled by the revelation. Scarlet believes fear has turned Godwin into a senile old man spouting nonsense to save himself. She refuses to believe his claim that Taraneza is a girl summoned from another world by a goddess and decides he deserves punishment. Godwin tries to bargain, offering her anything she wants. After a brief thought, Scarlet says she wants a human punching bag with shifty eyes, a pointed nose, and padded clothes. Godwin agrees, until he realizes she's describing him. Smirking, Scarlet activates Kreno's power, slowing time 100-fold so only she can move freely. She unleashes a flurry of punches, striking him for every person he exploited, every slave he sold, for Manaka's ruined life for her own attempted murder, and simply because she wants to beat him senseless. When her spell fades, Godwin is hurled away by the accumulated force. Scarlet bows gracefully before collapsing from overusing Kreno's power, her hair darkening at the tips and her hands bleeding. Fearing her brother's disappointment, she loses balance, but Julius catches her and heals her, remarking that if he didn't know her, he'd never believe a human fought here. Soon after, Leonardo and the others arrive, worriedly asking if she's all right. They wonder where Godwin went, and she explains he just passed through the wall. Scarlet had underestimated the old Prime Minister. He was still on his feet. Jumping down, Godwin drew the pistol Taraneza had given him and fired at Scarlet, but Julius threw himself in front of her, taking the bullet. Everyone froze in horror as Godwin laughed, pleased to have removed one obstacle. Enraged, Scarlet charged at him, slamming him to the ground with a single punch. Godwyn smugly declared that her attacks were useless, protected by a gift from goddess Pomea. Foolishly, he showed it off, and Scarlet instantly tore it from his hand before breaking his nose. Declaring that he must atone in the afterlife for killing Julius, she struck him with all her strength, sending him flying. Believing her vengeance complete, she told Julius to watch over them from heaven, only for him to cough and reveal he was alive, saved by Leonardo's healing magic. When he teasingly asked if she was disappointed, she smiled in relief, glad he survived. Soon after, the nobles were arrested, and though Godwyn lived, he was utterly defeated. Scarlet rested in her carriage, content after settling the score. Meanwhile, in the vanquished empire, Prince Alflame hung stuck in a tree, waiting as his friend came to rescue him. He kicks the tree, knocking Alflame down before helping him to his dragon. Alflame groans that his bones might be broken, but his friend laughs, saying that's impossible for someone with the toughest body on the planet. The red-haired prince admits he was blasted from another country and probably used up all his luck surviving. They reach the dragon and take off, and on the way, the blonde teases if Alflame got to play with his toy. Remembering Scarlet, Alflame admits he enjoyed her company more than expected and wants to see her again. Back in the kingdom, Scarlet's act of stopping the slave auction spreads fast, earning her fame as a savior. Reporters flood the academy to learn about her, asking what kind of pet she keeps, expecting a cat or dog, only to discover it's Rex, Alflame's dragon. As Scarlet trains Rex, Nanako watches jealously until her butler arrives, reporting her new product is now stocked everywhere, though he doubts it will sell. Scarlet is confident Julius will buy plenty, and when the butler teases Nanaka's envy, Scarlet invites her to play. Nanaka happily transforms into a pup and runs to her, but maids appear and drag her off to help with arriving guests. Meanwhile, Terraneza visits the prison and hypnotizes the guards to let her in. Fantasizing about her fairy tale ending, she meets Godwyn, who pleads for freedom and vows loyalty to the goddess. She thanks him for spreading communism and gives him a gift from the goddess Pomina, then brainwashes him, leaves poison, and calmly walks away after he drinks it, thanking him before declaring he's no longer needed. News of his death shocks Julius and the others, who refuse to believe such a strong man would take his own life. Leonardo finds it odd too, especially with no sign of Terraneza despite Scarlet's report naming her as an accomplice. Nanaka then brings the files Leonardo requested, and while reviewing them, Julius grows curious about the girl who controlled the prime minister. Finding notes on communism, he explains it's a major faith worshipping Paulina, goddess of beauty and love, led by a greedy merchant. Nanaka quickly links it to Godwyn's corrupt dealings. Sigurd mentions an older faith, Dianism, devoted to Saint Diana, blessed with exorcism powers. Though not the state religion, most citizens still follow it and claim it deserves the title. Remembering the upcoming Dianism pilgrimage festival, Julius assigns it to Leonardo, eager to avoid it himself. Changing topics, he asks about Scarlet, and Leonardo proudly reports she's thriving, even hunting her dragon yesterday. Julius laughs, calling her impressive, then wonders if he should propose. Leonardo chuckles, revealing they've already exchanged vows, leaving Nanaka and Sigurd stunned as Julius quietly hopes he'll realize it for himself someday. He decides to visit his beloved, and a few days later, Scarlet has fully tamed the dragon, gracefully riding on its back. When her academy friends arrive at her home, they see the dragon flying toward them and, not noticing Scarlet atop it, immediately attack before the butler can explain it's harmless. Despite the assault, Scarlet remains unscathed. Later, over tea, they admit they mistook the dragon for an enemy since soldiers from the opposing kingdom rode similar beasts, and they wanted to take one down. Amused by their unchanged recklessness, Scarlet feels nostalgic after so long apart. The girls soon bicker over who ruled the dorms in her absence before urging her to recover quickly and return for graduation. They don't want to finish without her. The purple-haired girl jokes about wanting to graduate soon and marry a good man, though she admits her many suitors aren't serious, wishing instead for someone who'd risk his life for her. Scarlet is touched but reminded of Julius's sacrifice, uncertain how to feel. When her friends tease her about marriage plans, she's spared from answering as Nanaka enters, and she simply tells him she's busy and will play with him later. Nanaka points out that Scarlet hasn't come to play. She's brought a guest, Julius, and the girls freeze, sprinting up to greet him. When he asks if he's disturbing them, Scarlet snaps that he's interrupting her tea, though the others offer it gladly for the prince. Julius asks to borrow Scarlet for a moment, which irks her, but he takes her hand and asks to speak privately. The girls swim in tease, leaving Scarlet stunned. Outside, Julius tells her Godwyn died in custody and that his follow-up on Terraneza's stalled because Kyle knew nothing, so Scarlet finally understands the need for privacy. He asks if she has anything else to say. She denies it and says only that she'll visit a hot spring to recover her hair. Julius reminds her she's invaluable to the kingdom and begs her not to risk her life. She admits she feels the same and warns him never to do so again. She's grateful the royals value her blessing but terrified of losing the future king. Julius then picks roses, remembers a market visit and his father's secret romantic streak, picks a rose crown, sets it on Scarlet, and declares she has stolen his heart and should stay with him forever. Her answer freezes when he calls her his most beloved toy, and when he adds that the crown's love is only for his amusing toy, Scarlet's joy vanishes. She straps on her knuckle gloves and, coldly amused, asks if she has his permission to clobber him. Sometime later, Scarlet receives a letter from Diana, who wishes to meet her at Diana Cathedral in a month. With Terraneza missing and Palmian schemes at play, Scarlet senses trouble and vows to protect her. She then tells her brother Leonardo she wants to go on a hot springs tour, but he immediately suspects it's just an excuse to hit someone, especially after her lie about making a vow with Prince Julius. Disappointed, Leonardo listens as she insists her story is true. While Nanaka serves tea, he notices the hot springs location and jokingly asks if she plans to punch the saint. His face drains when he realizes her route matches the Holy Land pilgrimage, but Scarlet quickly assures him she'd never harm such a revered figure. Relieved, he allows the trip, and Scarlet thanks him before leaving, only for her smile to fade when she finds Julius waiting outside. In the carriage, Julius laughs at Leonardo's misunderstanding, but Scarlet warns him not to tease her brother. He then grows serious, explaining that since the Godwin affair, neighboring realms have been restless, spies may lurk in court and their journey must remain secret, even from Leo. When he touches her cheek and asks if she understands, Scarlet averts her eyes in uneasy silence. Their destination came into view, and Scarlet noted the wall of impurity that hemmed in the religious quarter, the stately headquarters of Palmianism and Dianism, which impressed her despite knowing its purpose. Julius scoffed that the Palmian Pope claimed it kept worldly filth out, but really it hid his corruption. The current head, Pope Sargon, was once a corrupt merchant and a known social climber, a name that made Scarlet sparkle with delight at the thought of laying him out, and Julius silently expect her to try. The carriage halted. The gate had just shut. Guards, apologizing, said Sargon ordered no one pass without the king's approval. Julius, aware the king was at a conference, called it petty obstruction. An Ober stepped forward, Jarmuth, inquisitor of Palmianism, who bristled at Julius's insult and declared his duty, backed by the goddess Palmia, to purge heretics, producing a sacred hammer as proof. Scarlet saw only a target. Julius admitted he recorded part of their plan with the magic item and left the rest to her, so she strapped on her gloves and moved to open the gate. Jarmuth mocked Scarlet as a fool, claiming no ram or spell could harm the holy gate, until the ground shook and Scarlet shattered it with her bare hands, calmly noting they'd overlooked the simple truth. The gate opens by pushing, not pulling. Everyone now saw her as a monster, which she teasingly called rude toward a lovely maiden, and Jarmuth realized she was Scarlet Elven, the blood-stained lady, causing the guards to flee. Angered that she had deceived Minister Godwin, he raised his weapon. Scarlet grabbed a guard's spear, but before she could use it, Jarmuth attacked, mocking her for thinking a spear could stop his flail, only for her to knock the spiked ball back into his stomach with a single strike. He coughed blood and fell but rose again, claiming no wound could hinder his mission while his pendant healed him. Tired of the trick, Scarlet punched him skyward, joking that pigs could fly, a saying only she could make. The Holy Order of Diana arrived, led by Paragas, who greeted Scarlet warmly and explained they had been quelling Palmia riots. Scarlet sensed their anger stemmed from Dianism's growing unity, while Julius suspected deeper motives. Backslash, as Paragas scolded a tardy soldier, the man froze, entranced by Scarlet's beauty, asking where she had been all his life. Julius stepped between them, admonishing the knight for manners, and Paragas promised to beat sense into him. Afterward, the man introduced himself as Dios Westwood, head knight of the order. Julius remained stern, and Scarlet noticed Dios seemed uneasy around free spirits. She politely introduced herself, but Dios boldly declared his love, asking her to be his girlfriend. Silence fell. When he mentioned class differences, Scarlet said they didn't matter, though noble birth required marriage within rank. Dios boasted of his half-elf royal lineage before realizing he revealed too much, making Scarlet chuckle at his breach of decorum. As she moved her hand, Dios released it, only for Julius to seize it, demanding respect. Dios smirked at their dynamic, but was dragged away by his comrades, jokingly inviting Scarlet on a date. Paragas apologized, noting Dios was a skilled but arrogant fighter. Scarlet admitted she had sensed his talent even in battle. She then asked Julius when he would release her hand, and after a brief silent look, he stepped back. Julius apologized for his rashness and left before Scarlet could question him. They soon met Street Diana, where he requested a private room to discuss the pilgrimage in secrecy. Inside, he reconsidered having a chaperone, only for Diana to burst in, joyfully calling Scarlet her big sister. Scarlet hugged her warmly, but Julius pulled Diana aside, reminding her to greet him too. Horrified at the touch, Diana demanded release, rejecting the chaperone idea as a waste of time better spent doting on Scarlet. Julius teased her lack of saintliness, prompting her to cling to Scarlet again and ask for the black-hearted prince to be scolded. Amused, Scarlet urged them to begin. Julius explained the Holy Land pilgrimage's history. 300 years ago, a girl with exorcising powers placed holy gems in the 4 directions to form a barrier against monsters. After her death, the barrier weakened until Diana purified the gems and restored it. The king built a cathedral honoring both, and whenever the barrier wanes, a new girl with exorcising powers arises as the next Street Diana. Julius remarked dryly that the girl before him was the new Street Diana, suspecting the saints of old must be turning in their graves. Irritated, Diana asked if he mocked her humble origins, but Julius ignored it, stressing the pilgrimage's importance in purifying the gems and renewing the barrier, which would begin in a few days. Diana complained about the exhausting parade, but Julius reminded her the people must see her alive and dignified, especially since she had lost her powers. Scarlet noticed Diana's brief sadness but smiled, agreeing she must do her part. She asked if Scarlet was staying over, and when confirmed, she excused herself cheerfully, promising to talk later. Julius called her bluff, and Scarlet told him to show kindness. He admitted his carelessness, leaving her to think that despite his strengths, he still couldn't grasp a woman's heart, perhaps weighed down by the pilgrimage. That night, Scarlet spent time with Diana, who admired tales of Scarlet punishing wicked nobles and hoped to grow strong, beautiful, and independent like her. When teased about young gentlemen, Diana scoffed at their bossiness but admitted Prince Julius looked fine. She vented about his constant teasing, punching a pillow, and vowed to make him pay, then flopped onto the bed, dreaming of a silver-haired, blue-eyed prince. Scarlet doubted such a combination existed. Their conversation ended when a maid reminded Diana it was bedtime. Diana begged Scarlet to stay, claiming it was allowed as Saint Diana, but Scarlet gently refused. Diana accepted, asking to be called Sonia, her private name. Though disappointed by the maid's interruption, her eyes sparkled at Scarlet's good night. Scarlet recalled Diana's earlier despair over losing her saintly powers and reflected on the god's cruelty, hoping the ceremony would go smoothly. On the day, Diana restored hope with the purifying chalice, and Julius declared the pilgrimage a success. Scarlet noted the crowd's support eased Diana's nerves, but cannon fire suddenly interrupted, sparking chaos. Scarlet leaped from the carriage, traced the attack to Palmian Cathedral, grabbed a polearm from a statue, shattered the monument, and declared it was time for her own festival, a festival of blood. Knowing where the culprits hid, Scarlet used her chrono-acceleration blessing to hurl a spear skyward, which smashed a building and ignited the disciples' gunpowder, blowing the place apart. She strolled in carrying the severed head of the Palmia statue, admitted she had thrown it, and at first was laughed off until someone named her, Scarlet Elvandin, the silver-haired devil. Noting that no one was hurt, she offered a dry greeting about their sudden misfortune while they mocked her, and summoned the wise to pass judgment. Kata arrived, outraged that she desecrated Palmianism's home, faltered at the sight of the statue head, and began a spell only for Scarlet to slam the head into his face, rip off his pendant, and mute his moralizing by knocking him out with a single blow. The disciples, claiming their mission to stop Diane and the festival had cost them sleepless nights, rallied to purge the heretic. Scarlet, contemptuous, asked if they saw what their noble quest had done to the plaza, sent the first attacker flying, and warned that stupidity might require death, or at least pain equal to it, and she was ready to find out with their help. When the authorities arrived, Scarlet stepped out smiling, saying the culprits were unconscious inside and left, leaving everyone puzzled. The crown's healers tended the wounded, and Scarlet guessed Julius had sent them, admiring his responsibility. Peace returned briefly before Diana suddenly fell from the festival float. Scarlet and the knights were too far to help, but Leonardo appeared on horseback and caught her, checking if she was unharmed. Later, Sigurd reported to the prince that the town was calm and the Holy Land pilgrimage had departed safely, though Julius found it suspicious that the Palmians had a trap ready despite only the pilgrims knowing their arrival. He ordered Sigurd to infiltrate the Palmians to uncover their motives, suspecting a spy, and Sigurd accepted. Meanwhile, Leonardo asked Scarlet why she joined the pilgrimage. She claimed she had come to the capital by chance, witnessed Palmian wrongdoing, and gave up her hot springs trip for the greater good. Leonardo doubted her excuse but didn't press. He mentioned the Palmian disciples, spoke of a silver-haired devil. Scarlet feigned ignorance, trying to distract him with a cookie, but Leonardo asked if she was at the center of the incidents. Calmly, she said she was only assisting the pilgrimage, providing help only she could offer. Leonardo assumed her silence was due to the prince's orders, noting the Palmians had become reckless and their cannons were unloaded this time, and warned her that even her blessing couldn't handle everything alone, advising her to seek her brother's help. Surprised but touched, Scarlet agreed. That night, Paragas chased Deos for skipping work. Deos spotted Scarlet and tried to greet her, but Paragas dragged him off to gather firewood. Soon after, a maid told Scarlet Diana had been acting strangely since yesterday. Checking on her, Scarlet found Diana blushing and rolling in bed, screaming until Scarlet restrained her with a blanket. Diana admitted she couldn't calm down because Scarlet's face reminded her of Prince Charming, making her heart race, and confessed she had fallen in love with Leonardo at first sight and couldn't stop thinking about him. Smiling, Scarlet praised her taste, calling Leonardo the most wonderful man in the world. And when Diana said she didn't know what to do, Scarlet assured her she had the perfect idea. A week after leaving the capital, they reached Memphis, a city on Palestine's eastern border known for its hot springs and as the first stop on the Holy Land pilgrimage. While enjoying the baths, Scarlet reviewed her plan with Diana, who hesitated at the idea of inviting him on a sudden nighttime date. Scarlet assured her that love required boldness and promised to handle everything. Back in their room, Scarlet styled Diana's hair fall naturally and dressed her in Memphis's traditional outfit, calling it the new side of her plan to reveal an unexpected charm that would capture a man's attention. Diana admired her wisdom and vowed to do her best. Just then, Scarlet opened the door to find Nanaka eavesdropping. Knowing he had been watching since they left the capital under her brother's orders, she praised him for his diligence, and Diana followed suit. When Scarlet teased him about a hot bath, Nanaka panicked, insisting he preferred cold water before fleeing. Before leaving, he informed them that Leonardo had finished bathing and was now in his room, suggesting Diana invite him before bed. Gathering her courage, Diana went to Leo's room and shyly asked if he would like to tour the city, while Leonardo paused, recalling Scarlett's earlier advice. Leonardo remembered Diana's wish to feel like an ordinary girl and kindly accepted her invitation to tour the city, which made her very happy. Scarlett, satisfied, left them to explore Memphis and nightlife and strolled the festival in good spirits until Julius turned up sooner than expected, boasting he was the kingdom's busiest noble and trying to steal some of her food. She dodged and told him she wasn't here to enjoy herself but to monitor local adventurers, specifically the lycanthrope from the slave auction rumored to be a former adventurer. Julius acknowledged there were ruffians among them, but doubted she'd so easily find one worth her fists. And just then a group of adventurers began smashing a merchant's booth in anger over a lost bet. So with the guards inactive, Julius surprised the stunned merchant by offering a bag of money to buy all of his goods, including the broken ones, on the condition the merchant could throw out or otherwise deal with the troublemakers. Scarlett handed Julius her prizes and food, thanking him for laying the groundwork before suddenly punching an adventurer in the ribs, sending him into his companion, one out cold while the other, fuming, warned they were the feared Golden Heifer party. Ignoring him, Scarlett mocked their meat as too grating for cows, donned her gloves, and declared she'd eat anyway. Leo shivered, sensing his sister's mischief, while Diana cheerfully wondered where to go next. Pushing the feeling aside, Leo brought her to the goldfish pond and explained the game. After a few failed attempts, Diana reminded him of Scarlett as a child, making him smile. He guided her hand patiently, teaching her to move slowly until she caught a fish. Excited, she briefly considered taking it home, but decided it would miss its friends, earning a smile from Leo that made her blush. Later, they rejoined the crowd, and Diana suggested trying every game and food, enjoying the festival with him. Spotting a cute headband, a merchant offered a pair at a discount. Despite Leo's hesitation, her sparkling eyes convinced him, and soon they were wearing matching cat ears. Delighted, Diana realized how happy small things like matching accessories could make her. When two drunk men passed by, Leo instinctively pulled her close, warning her not to wander and gently explained that a crowded bar could be dangerous. Embarrassed, Diana apologized, saying she got too excited being out at night. Though touched by his kindness, she felt infantilized and asked if that was how he saw her. Leonardo apologized, saying she reminded him of a young Scarlett, but Diana insisted it was impossible. Scarlett was always graceful and strong, while she was a clumsy tomboy who needed protection. Tears forming, she admitted she could never compare. Smiling, Leonardo knelt, telling her she was brilliant, irreplaceable, and had fulfilled her duties flawlessly. Before she could respond, a commotion arose over a silver-haired lady. A knight reported the situation, and Leonardo ordered Diana back to the inn as he rushed to find his sister. Watching him leave, Diana silently wished she could be more like Scarlett. Meanwhile, at the festival, Deos discreetly took a suspicious note from a merchant while the knights kept watch, and far away in the vanquished empire, the Red Sky Dragoons received a visit from Miklin the strategist, a Palmian inquisitor who informed Alflame and his men that Palmia's followers were requesting the Dragoons' aid along with the Prince of Vanquish. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.